Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
So for those of you just joining us, we're having this conversation about, what was it about? I don't even know.
I don't know if we want to do we want to do this?
Why not?
I'll do it.
You don't talk about your personal, anything like personal, whatever. It's just like, this is more of just a theoretical, right?
Okay, yeah. So we'll pose it in this manner. Okay. Is society better or worse off that we essentially coddle the weakest among us?
Well, that's
a biased explanation.
well,
You set people up for failure with that question.
well, yeah.
It's a genuine question.
Yeah, but the question had a little sting to it.
Yeah, which side? I wonder what you think about it.
Yeah, I'm clearly like,
Yeah, right. Tell us.
throw
how you
everyone
feel.
into the Coliseum, and the strongest will survive.
You can't throw grown men and children in there at the same time, though. That's the problem.
Well, you can.
Yeah, Justin's worlds, you can.
Well, okay.
And the good men will protect the children, and the bad men
There's such thing
will
as
preserve themselves. And then hopefully the good men will beat the bad men.
just because some aspects.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
just because some aspects about our society, they also
all works out.
They also used to like mass kill children too. So it's like we've all moved past that.
well, Spartans
just because,
used to throw their babies off like cliffs and stuff, bro.
yeah, well,
But
'cause
also-
only the strongest
so you're
survive,
saying-
Got
whatever.
the movie 300.
So you're saying bring that back.
I'm just saying, like, we remember them.
Yeah. All right.
And their way of life is no more.
There are certain, okay, so in
Fuck
some
could that
ways,
be?
our society's gone backwards, but I think that's kind of natural in like when you get to a certain point of progress. But I don't think we just tear it all down to like going back to
Go
those
back
days.
hundreds and thousands.
Another thought.
There's no Bachelor in those days either, Justin.
Another thought. Hey, I survive. I'll figure it out.
Oh, that's great.
That's tough. Yeah.
You know what? Let's just take away electricity.
No, the way this
To my point,
No
though,
more
it's like
cars.
eventually like make things harder,
Let's stop
and
progressing.
the innovators, the warriors will prevail. Because I feel like if there's
How about this? You can
There's
sign up for that and you can just go to this island where everyone who thinks like that could just live. Right?
Justin, let me ask you a question.
Okay, so who's ruling today's society? Is
wait.
it the warriors and the innovators, or is it like the career politician, like
Of course, yeah. No,
bunch of like
I don't think
baby
you can
back
argue with that.
B words?
Yeah.
Literally,
sure.
we're being led by baby back B words.
Let me ask you, Justin. Let me ask
I
you
guess
this.
that's my beef.
I get, yes. I
want to be
understand
led.
that.
I want to be led by Aegon Targaryen.
All right. I
I've
understand.
been watching way too much Game of Thrones.
All right.
So I'm sorry.
Here's the question. If in Justin's world, if you would have the option to go back to the Spartan times, let's say,
Yeah.
and never progress from there, like that's just it forever, is that something you'd be wanting to do? No type of progress in the way of life, in technology, nothing goes forward.
So I don't got a car.
Right.
Got no car, got no internet, but everything I do in my life was within like 400 yards of my physical living space.
Well, that's up to you.
maybe a
can
couple
walk.
miles.
Sometimes
not-
I'd venture a little
400
further if I need
yards is
to.
not-
I would hope I would be smart enough to settle somewhere where we have like access to clean drinking water and things
Well, if you
like,
don't, you can't.
nearby, right?
Right. Whatever you got's what you got.
You don't have a
period.
life straw.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we gotta be on the water. Yeah. I don't know. It's an impossible question because it's just like I love the love the technology. I love the convenience of certain things, but also like I love the simplicity of like literally waking up and be like, you eat today if you hunt something and kill it, or you go
I agree. I
grow
love
something.
that. The
Like,
problem
the
is
simplicity of it.
at this point, the problem is it's only really reserved for people who are like wealthy and all set. It's like the Joe Rogans and, the people that like are able to like have the money to where they can go hunt and say they like, just eat the meat that they kill. I mean, they've done, how they talk about all that stuff. I feel like
that's what he does.
Yeah.
For every meal.
No, just the meat.
You could literally do that tomorrow.
I mean, he goes out to restaurants and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that all the meat he cooks at his house personally is stuff that he killed. So, and I've heard of people doing that, but it's usually dudes that are like real successful, don't have to worry, you know, can hunt for hours every day or whatever, or, you know, have the free time to do that. So it's like, it's really only reserved for, it's like once you get to a certain point, you kind of just get back to those roots.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
it's like we're working so hard to just become the people that we were always meant to be. It's like, well, we have all the freedom.
I could see that.
We just literally just want to go kill
if I was super rich, I would not be hunting my own food. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a fulfillment thing. People feel fulfilled in that.
Yeah.
So
and they more appreciate like basically the life that, you know, deer or whatever like had and the sacrifice that it made so that they could eat.
No, I get that.
Day.
Like the AWA vibe.
They feel that connection to the food. Yeah. AWA.
That's why I think
who's jacked about Avatar, by the way. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's part of why I think like praying over your food was always so important, like historically, but not so much nowadays. It's because it's like when you had to kill something to live, like you have to honor the fact that like in order for me to continue living, something just had to die. Even if it's a plant, that thing was alive. Like you had to just murder something so that you could keep living.
And that's one of those things too, where
it's like
the blessing the food and all that, I can't, ever since I heard one of these guys talk about it, it was basically like Jesus never blessed the food. He always gave thanks. It's always a gratitude thing.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that's the posture when we pray for our food. It's like, well, bless it. So what? So it doesn't like hurt our bodies? Like what? I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just like the food is the blessing.
Take sickness from our midst. Amen.
And you're thanking, you know, for providing. So that's like, yeah, I totally get that.
It's just a like this long spectrum of convenience and comfort. And we're the beneficiaries
1 minute later.
Centuries and centuries of hard work. Like just imagine like 200 years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
so
you don't get to have anything unless you go out and grow it.
So if you went back to the Spartan, let's go back to my example question. You're a Spartan.
But I think that's why our gratitude spectrum is so jacked up.
No, I don't.
We don't have to work for anything anymore.
But if you had to go back then and you had a spear to kill your meal for the day, Justin's fired up already. He's like, give me the spear.
He wants to go do it.
But you did that for 10 years and it worked. And then someone comes along and they're like, hey, instead of that spear, you should try this trap. I just made this up. It'll make our life so much easier.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. You just set this up, come back tomorrow, and your job's done. Isn't that progress like what leads to innovation?
We're at the place we were always meant to get to.
Right.
And that's we're always meant to be here with dealing with these problems because of how much we've innovated.
But the challenge,
and it'll never
I
stop.
agree with you. I agree with you. But the challenge is this. It's like, it's back to that whole like cycle of like hard times create strong people. It's like we've created very good times. And now because of that, we're creating weak people.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're right. Everyone's always going to choose the easier option or the road of the least amount of adversity.
Sure.
But the problem is the principle of hormesis is you only get as strong as the amount of adversity you have to face in your life. So it's the most successful people among us are just the people who have faced the most adversity and chosen to continue forward.
Well, not across the board.
I would say for the most part,
you could easily
generally, you could have some talent
and have no type of work.
Like LeBron James. How hard did LeBron James work up until he was 20 years old?
He's a good example. But
he was given all the talent in the world.
What about like the Kardashians?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're the example of like, they didn't have any real adversity. So it's like, look at the actual character. It's like the challenges of their life is like, is my boyfriend's kid mine?
So you're not saying
it's
based on like success.
So in my opinion, it's human nature to make life easier because why wouldn't you?
Right.
It's comfortable as people are always going to choose comfort, but there is an unfortunate consequence as you choose comfort more and more as a society, then the character of the individual will deteriorate.
Sure.
Because we're not faced with hard decisions. It's like you're not virtuous unless you have have power and then you turn down evil type of things, right? So it's like until you have the ability to be a kingmaker and choose between right and wrong, and you choose right, even though it might hurt more or it might benefit you less. Like until you have the ability to have like comfort versus challenge, and you choose challenge because you know it's best for you. It's like,
but that could be, people can still come across that even if the like it's different.
Sure.
So like you can choose that with a career path and not necessarily like living outside. You know what I mean? Like, I guess just like the times of it has changed. Like someone could easily choose challenge over comfort. It's just what
and
those choices look like.
You'll find
today
more
are way
success.
different.
Well, the thing is, you'll find more success where you choose challenge, unless you come from like a generational type of like wealth where you can choose comfort because like it doesn't matter whether or not you succeed, like you're just taken care of.
I think at one point it's part of human nature to want to go back to challenge.
Yeah.
People who are super successful at one point, they're just like, I'm tired of living this. I'm tired of living this easy life. Like now I'm going to challenge myself.
Well, the best of us do. I think the problem is the masses, for the most part, are just going to choose comfort.
Well, that's because they never. That's because they many of them fully believe they'll never get to that success point. So they're just like, I'm just going to live my life in the most comfortable way possible because I'll never get to where these other people are. But which
is a belief issue. That's but it's not a realistic thing. It's
maybe
idealistic
that's more
thing.
the problem then. So it's not so much that we don't get challenges, as we just don't have alternative ways to build character that are as good.
You certainly face challenges.
Well, and we just don't.
Just because society progresses doesn't mean challenges
just change.
Away. Yeah, they just change.
Different.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, but not all challenges are created equal. Well,
that's relative. My challenges are my challenges. Yours are yours.
I 100% agree.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. The more challenge you're willing to take on, like it builds your capacity.
Sure.
So it's like the bigger the challenge you're willing to face and conquer, the more you grow.
I think
so. It's the whole argument of, do we make the road safe for the child, or do we develop the child to prepare him for a difficult road?
Yeah, there's probably a middle ground, but I'm still just can't get over, like, it's one of those, there are so many people who are willing to go and say, well, this is really what the world should look like. It's like, well, we're never going to get to that point. Like, you need to be realistic. Right. So, you could say that the ideal world looks like this. Right. But what I'm saying is we have to take what we have and figure out how to make it better. Not so much like, well, this is what, it's you could say like Medicare for all. Sounds like a great idea. People get, free healthcare on a limited basis, whatever, it's in the taxes. But then at the same time, it's just like, there is no way to get from where we're at to that. Just because of the industries that are built on privatized insurance and all, I mean, all that stuff, It's just not, you just can't do that. So what we have to do is try to figure out, all right, well, how do we make this current stupid system better? And
I would argue the same with religion, though. It's like, there's nothing more extreme than introducing a new religion into a populace and then saying you have to give up everything you've ever thought about the world and believe this is the one true God, or your life is screwed.
Yeah, well,
like we did that.
That's why it's good that we have that freedom of religion to choose whatever we want.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the world is literally like nothing is real. The only thing that's real is what certain people convinced enough people of.
Yeah.
Like everything is literally like,
yeah, I get
just hangs in this balance of just human perception.
What, the other thing too is with progress. So you could say we've lost all this stuff and all that, but it's just, I don't believe you lose something without receiving another benefit of something. So, maybe we've lost adversity, lost that character development, that we get through that, but we've gained like modern medicine, people live longer, a lot of those, like, people used to die awful, tragic deaths. Right. But now we live long enough to where we're dying of, diseases and isn't good either.
So here's the question.
It's just like,
do we trade quantity of life for quality of life? That's what we're doing.
That medicine was just one example, right? Like, so you could say all these other conveniences we have.
Everything.
But how do you grade quality? It's relative.
Agreed. But I think it's end of the day, it's like, are you genuinely happy with your life? Like, if you got to do it over, would you change it?
That's what. So that's the problem. It's the mental health thing that we need to address. It's not so much all of the other things that are around us. It's just like we need to address how to, and a lot of people are trying to seek this out, right, for themselves. They have gurus and all this other stuff. But it's going to be different for everybody, but trading, like living in the woods and just eating what you kill. And some days you don't eat and, you die one day of malaria with no ability to get medical care, or you have to watch your child die, in their 20s of some disease that you have no ability to, or you're powerless.
Sure.
So I don't think that can be overstated, to like, we're dealing with different problems for sure, but if you take like all the pros and cons, the pros have to outweigh like with innovation, like it all outweighs it. Like, so, but there's a lot of things that are issues that have resulted as because of that, like you're saying, but it's just like, we just need to identify the issues and fix those. The problem is
that'll never end.
We suck at identifying the real issues.
Sure.
For sure.
Whether, and a lot of it's because of greed and like, companies like, oh, no, this is really the problem. Just buy this. And this will solve, this will make you happy. It's like, no, it's more of an internal thing. Well, people don't want to identify that.
Think about how like even money became a thing. It's like at first, before we got away from the gold standard with like the Great Depression and stuff like that, it was like enough people just found this like shiny metal and they're just like, this is valuable. Like we don't make anything with it, like except like jewelry, but it's like we don't do anything with it. But it's like it's shiny, it's really rare. You want it, right?
It has a lot of cool characteristics.
All money. Well, if we actually used
as a metal, it does
as an like alloy. Yeah. Like if we actually were to use it, but we don't, other than just like jewelry and stuff like that. But it's like we just convinced enough people that it's like this is really valuable. You want to have it, and then it's like we can print as much money as we have gold, and it's like who cares about gold? Like when
JJ does.
When someone invades our country,
right now for no one's like,
next week, how much gold do we have in our strategic reserve? It's like no one cares. It's like, but we built an entire like this whole thing is like so fragile, but somehow enough people believe in it that it's like it's the perception and belief from humans that gives it the strength. But in general, like legitimate, it's like there's nothing to it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean by saying nothing's real. Like I get the sentiment. So,
well, it's all real, but nothing's real. But it's all real. Same thing, but different.
My question would be: so then what? Like you take it all away, and then what? Like what's your answer?
I think once you take it away, then you find what life's all about. That's the hard part.
Which is what though?
That's what you got to fight for.
Hunting and
well, that's what people fight for in the midst of all that's happening around us right now.
Maybe you want to grow crops, like however you want to sustain yourself or feed yourself. But I think like until your choices are taken from you, you don't really know who you are. Like you're simply just a culmination of conditioning and opportunities and things that have been given to you. But no one knows who they really are because we've never really been forced to find out.
So would you not want? So for example, in this world, you wouldn't want a structure of like any kind of like checks and balances or protection or, cause you think of something could happen. Someone could make up something about you.
You're saying like a legal system?
Yeah. You have no way to prove anything. Sure. The whole town just burns you at the stake for no reason.
No. Yeah.
And then you're just like,
survival of the fittest
without a trial. Because you don't have to have a trial because there's no legal structure.
No, again, I'm coming hot off of like a bunch of, so between Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon, like I have been just balls deep on YouTube listening to people who have done years of research. And I'm listening to all of it and I'm like, low key, I think I would rather live then. Like life would be shorter.
Okay, but that happened to you.
And harder.
Life would be much shorter.
We'd probably all be dead already.
There's like glory. Like there's like
if you make it.
Just imagine, like because when the stakes are higher, the potential for like glory is like so much increased. Or it's now it's
I
like
guess.
we aren't really
for a lot of people though they would say that like it's like when the people who are successful business owners are like fewer, and then you have the masses that are just poor.
Well, and those are the guys that take the most risk.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You could easily be one of those poor people that's like
for sure
shitting in the streets And it's just like what I mean. But they don't show those characters on the show.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well,
but they
watch
exist.
the glory show.
But the beauty of America is that there's story after story after story of people who started in the slums, and like if they were determined, they could get to the top.
We wouldn't have an America.
Which is, I think that's the beauty of America. Not that America's perfect, not that we've never made mistakes, but it's the fact that it's like, end of the day, if you want it bad enough, you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of places in the world where like doesn't matter how bad you want it, you'll never get it.
Well, I think people make a mistake in assuming America is the only place that can happen. I mean, certainly, I think for a period of time it was easier here, but I mean, I think you can have a real successful business in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
So
but a lot other countries have more hands-on business though. Like government has more hands-on in business, and that sucks. But yeah.
So if that's what fires you up about, I'm trying to pick your brain about your.
No, because I'm real close to just going off grid.
Do you think that in the Lord of the Rings days, do you think in the Lord of the Rings setting that anyone could just climb their way to the top if they wanted it?
No, I think back then it was much harder.
So, but you still want that.
I think it's,
even though today is you like that the most.
No, I think that's just the best approach to society. I think people should believe that if I want to work hard enough, that we can get there. And that's why like I just personally fall more on the side of like a capitalist approach, just in the sense of like competition is good. I see competition as a good thing in all areas, because I think it means the best are going to rise to the top.
So would
and
you
I think
take
we need the best, most capable people at the top.
But you wouldn't say also that capitalism in a lot of ways, because of greed,
it's hurt a lot of people.
Also destroys character?
No, for sure. Well, it reveals. I would say it reveals. It reveals the true intent. So I don't think it necessarily corrupts. But then even at that, to that point, then when does the corruption take place?
Well, I think anyone can be tempted
at a young age.
People can be a good person until all of a sudden they got all this money and all these like women throwing themselves at them and stuff. And in a guy's case anyway. And
I agree. And I've had this thought lately that like, regardless of whether there is one true religion or whatever, it's good that there was a legitimate religion at the foundation of like America, because it's like outside of that, how do you keep an entire population of people morally like on track? Because otherwise, like, why wouldn't you? Like, we just got the internet.
Well, how did like Europe get their moral framework? Is it through Christianity as well? Or
well, I mean, all that came. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would assume most of those governments were kind of married to the church. I mean, it had to have been.
Yeah.
With all the like the, what was it? Not the conquistadors. It was the Crusades.
I don't really know much at all about Italy's history, but it'd be interesting to know how Rome, like the Vatican, like how all that came to be, because Rome was an enemy of religion back in Bible times.
Up until like the 3rd century, it was Constantine. It was the Council of Nicaea. He basically married the Roman government with the Christian religion, and
That's
he basically said, yeah, now like legally you're allowed to be Christian in the Roman Empire, because when Jesus was actually crucified, Nero, one of the emperors soon after, would literally just crucify Christians in his garden every night and use them as like candles. He would just light them on fire, crucify them and light them on fire. And that's how he lit his garden at night.
Yeah, you could have been one of those candles if you lived back then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully I would have just been like, screw everything.
What do you mean?
Well, because they were only hanging the Christians. I'd just be like, I don't know that much. Like, if I met Jesus and he actually did like reveal himself as the Son of God and I believed it, like maybe.
Yeah.
Like, imagine getting crucified and then lit on fire just so some crazy person can like look at his flowers at night.
It's insane.
Hey, survival of the fittest.
How do you deal with the smell though, right? I couldn't deal with that.
Can't get away from it.
Justin.
The reason we got on all this conversation was because we were talking about, what were we talking about? Should the government be enforcing? We talked about, I was saying how like,
development.
I feel like it would be a lot harder to this was when we talked about kids.
Well,
before
right
that.
after that, when we started this, it was
about
should
kids.
culture progress.
Well, yeah. So kind of it started like
Now we need to go back.
like so it's tough. Like so I think it'd be very hard to have kids without being married or without having like, you know, call it common law, whatever. Basically living in the same house with the
So, yeah.
the mother or father of the child that you have. Right. So because I mean I know
say it a different
people.
way.
How would you say?
I would say it'd be very hard to have children without commitment.
Yeah, well,
In the marriage
there's
fact,
different level of commitment.
but the challenge,
You could be a fantastic father, but you're not going to live with the spouse if you don't like them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The marriage is a weird thing where it involves the government and it forces you to be there.
Well,
So it-
that's
in my
government.
mind-
That's
doesn't
legal.
force you to
That's
be
legal
there.
marriage. So you
No, if you get actually married and then if you want to leave, like the spouse has the right to legally come get money from you.
yeah. No,
So it's like there's a legitimate third entity.
yeah. So
that's
you're just
forcing
saying
you to stay.
Yeah. So you're just saying the government shouldn't be involved in marriage. Period.
I'm just saying a pure like
Yeah, I don't.
a pure commitment to like fatherhood or
Yeah,
I don't know, being a husband or whatever you
I
want
don't.
to call it.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I
It's
don't
like
know that.
it's meant to be a genuine, beautiful connection between two souls.
Right.
And because we've involved the government, now it's like it's messy.
Yeah. So marriage is like, I just think that, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't care if the government was involved or not in marriage.
Well,
Really.
that's because you have a marriage with two souls that are committed to each other.
right.
You can't blame the government for people's approach to marriage.
My thing,
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
well, it's like, right. So it's like, I don't think it doesn't matter to me whether the government's involved in the marriage part of it or not. Like, as far as like, you know, alimony and all that thing, I think that's BS, honestly. But
I don't think any of the money should. Yeah,
but
that's
anyway,
trash.
but when it comes to kids, I think they have to step in. Like they have to be. It's just like, all right, you just can't have a kid with someone, and then all of a sudden just dip out, you know. And so that's what they do. And I was saying it'd be very hard to have kids outside of some kind of like marriage or very committed relationship because, you know, legally. I mean, a lot of times you can't move out of the state if, you know, like, for example, if, you know, you're, so for me, if my kid's mom lives somewhere else with someone else and is like, you know, somewhere close by Orlando, there's probably a radius, like usually there's a radius. So it's like, all of a sudden now I'm just like, basically my whole life is just, I'm tethered now. I mean, you know, legally, unless I just want to sign over full rights, which is a horrible thing, like to have to do just to have freedom.
For sure.
But
yeah, that's tough.
That's why I think the emphasis just needs to be on the commitment and not so much on the legally binding agreement. Like it's like the commitment we make is like, we're going to figure this out.
Yep.
If things go good, if things go bad, it's me and you. We're going to do this.
Yeah,
and
but I don't think
I have to trust that like if things start to go south, you're not going to like run to the hills and screw me.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem is like, because there's so much commitment on this like legally binding aspect of it. It's like in the back of their minds, you're just like at any point you can just dip out and then just like bring this to some legal court and screw me because didn't work out the way you thought it was supposed to.
Yeah. Does a prenup protect people from having to pay alimony?
100%.
Does it? Yeah. So that's one of the things that it's just like, I used to be like, man, that's such a horrible thing. But then also it's like, well, you have someone sign that and it's like more like freeing. It's more like, now I know you're committed to me just to be committed to me. And there's not like anything that I'm worried about ever, you know, as far as you going and whatever. So
well,
it's like
just the reality of the situation of the day. It's like, it's just a respect thing. It's like, because I agree with you. Like it would be horrible to have to ask someone to sign a prenup. But at the same time, like if I was on the other side of it, like imagine if like I just like somehow wifed up some like rich lady and like she wanted me to sign a prenup, I'd be like, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like you know me, but it's like end of the day, like people screw loved ones all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like out of respect to you, like no problem. Like I wouldn't even be offended because it's like, yeah, like you have no idea if I'm just like in it to just screw you and take your money.
Yeah.
You don't know that. You can hope. So it's like out of a sign of respect. Like if I was on the other side of it, I'd just be like, yeah, no problem.
Sure.
Gladly, I'll sign that.
But it's like, yeah. So what you were saying is I don't I mean, for a marriage to happen, I don't even think the government needs to be involved. But I think once you have kids, like they have to, it's like at that point, it's almost like there's some kind of legal thing that needs to happen.
That goes back to the whole foundation of the argument.
No,
It's
we're not gonna go be gladiators.
No, we
Like,
can't
we're
do
not.
that.
We're
Can't
not.
do that, Justin.
I know.
We have to protect the ones who can't protect themselves.
Sometimes.
There's got to be. I bet there's a society on some island that they all just decided that they wanted to live this way, and they're all like living it.
I'll give Justin 2 weeks.
There's consequences. I've just watched way too much. I've been watching way too much Game of Thrones.
Over under Justin
So-
survives.
Those are fictional shows.
I'd like to think I'd have a shot. I probably won't. I probably don't.
They're science fiction shows.
15 years ago.
Dragons aren't real.
15 years ago. Hey, you don't know that. They could have been. We got literal bones of dinosaurs.
I know. Dinosaurs are real. We got no proof any of them breathe fire.
Well, we have proof that they don't.
Oh my gosh.
Are there aliens? Can they manipulate gravity? It's like, we don't understand everything.
Justin, it sounds like you need to just take a vacation, bro.
He's the guy that's just like, yeah, I know the earth is round, but I saw this one video. And it's just like, it was so convincing, dude. You have to watch this.
Just saying. Sometimes you got to think about what you think about. It's crazy.
I agree with that statement, though.
Your brain
Gotta think
exhausts
about
me.
Yeah. Hey, this is what makes for good
I didn't make my brain, dude. I didn't make it. This is just what happens.
This is a good conversation. I love it. We're not just ragging on you. I have weird thoughts all the time.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think you need to talk about the weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a safe place.
Is it?
Is it? Gabby's taking notes right now and just sending it off
I
to
think so.
as legal proof of.
You're able to think whatever you want.
Oh, Gabby, how you doing over there?
I'm doing great.
Are you?
Yep, just listening to the madness.
You have to have had some thoughts,
Nope,
right?
actually,
Not a one.
not,
Not a
one.
single time.
Mm-mm.
Do you want to go back to medieval times, Gabby? Yeah, me neither.
What?
I'm on my own.
What are your favorite? What are your favorite?
I'll survive.
What are
There
your
we go.
favorite things about life right now? Like just modern life, right? What we're living. You know,
I don't know. Chipotle?
I mean, the internet's nice.
internet is real nice. That's probably one of the top answers right there.
I don't know though.
I fucking can't.
If no one had the internet,
So I'm saying, if I
Better
never
off.
had the internet or a smartphone, would I be happier? Like,
oh, I would love to go
100%.
back. I'd love to go back to not having a phone.
do you remember?
Like, oh, so nice.
do you remember?
But at the same
Like, you
time,
could not be reached.
imagine though, right? It's just like, all right, your car, you get in a car wreck and you're like being impaled by a tree branch and you have a limited amount of time
That's just survival.
and
of
you
the
don't have a
fittest.
cell phone. Oh yeah. You shouldn't have gotten a wreck
Yeah, you shouldn't
in the
have
first
done that.
place,
Well, no,
dumbass.
I mean, you're
all
screwed.
you.
Well, you're screwed. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's unfortunate.
All right. Do you like cars
hopefully-
or do you like horses?
Hopefully, it wasn't your fault. If it was your own fault that caused the wreck, then that's karma. If someone else got you, it's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but that's sometimes what that safety net helps with is sometimes when you get screwed and it's not your fault.
Okay. You're not wrong. Question.
Bring it.
Is that rooted in a fear of what happens after this? Because it's like, if you know that there's another existence after this, then screw it. If I get pieced up on the road somehow by some crazy driver that wasn't paying attention, and that's just how my end just so happened
Pieced
to go.
up. Is that what you said?
It might have been.
Might have been.
But it's like,
So
I don't
you're-
have
you're
fear
saying-
of the next
No, it's
version
not
of life.
That's
And
not
it's like,
necessarily
all right.
it. I 100% believe there is something after this.
Maybe.
Right? Exactly. Okay. I think there is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that doesn't necessarily mean I don't want to make the most of this life.
Right.
I agree.
So it's like, I mean, that's kind of how I think about it. Cause either that, like,
So
everyone.
what is that? How do you define make the most of this life?
I
I
don't
think
know. I
that's-
mean, you just keep searching, like keep searching for fulfillment, keep finding ways to
Because I think that's maybe
benefit
maybe
your,
the foundation,
your family, benefit others,
like the
just
elbow
like
of it. Because it's like, what does making the most of this life look like? Is it going through a lot of hard things so you develop and become the best version of you? Or is it just, moving in a way where you just make your life as comfortable as possible?
Well, I would say that, yeah, the more noble version is the first one, but it's just like, and we all get caught in the second one, being comfortable, being selfish. That's not making the most of your life for sure. But I think the goal is like, as long as I can live, there's at least hope that I can benefit someone else, like as I live longer, even if I squander that, right? Like at least there's hope.
Yeah.
Well, because that's what, we have all the scriptures. It's like more blessed to give than receive. It's like, it's like very clear that like the route to fulfillment goes through a life of sacrifice.
Yeah.
But like the life of comfort is directly opposed to that kind of ambition.
I think that's something we could all agree on.
Yeah.
So, for sure.
I guess that's kind of
Well, I'm glad we all came back together on
Well,
this.
doesn't that, I mean, that makes, so you're saying that makes
That's the
life
human
fulfilling.
predicament. It's the human predicament.
Yeah.
I think any human throughout history would have always chosen more comfortable options. I mean, you look at kings, like they started hiding on in their castles and got a bunch of concubines. Like they clearly chose a life of comfort once they had the means to.
Well, I guess it just depends how you define comfort, because like a life of service. So for example, like if I'm at home and I just sat down on the couch, man, I'm comfortable. And then like my wife is like, hey, can you get up and go do this for me? I have in that moment a decision to make. Do I choose my comfort or do I choose service? And it's a stupid example, but the same one can be used for anyone else's relative.
Can I tell you what my mind would think in that situation?
Well, it's comfort or service, Justin. What do you do?
I would say not once did I interrupt your day to ask you to do something for me that I could have done for myself.
Well, that's not service, Justin. That's comfort. You're serving yourself.
Well, yeah,
And
I understand.
what I'm saying for her is like, you're being selfish because I didn't ask you to do anything for me. Now you're asking me to do something for you.
Well, that's right.
At the end of the day, we can have a genuine conversation.
I feel like that's kind of an immature way to handle it, though. Like, so it's like I imagine Lincoln saying that, but
Maybe if it's not a pattern type behavior.
but that's what and I have to tell him like it's
you're
like,
constantly asking me to do things for you when I don't ask you to do things for me. It's like,
oh, well, that's different.
and that's not
different.
that's how I would.
but that's not a
approach it.
committed
Yeah, that's
servanthood towards each other.
But I'm just saying, if you're just bringing up that a time that like, oh, I didn't ask you to do anything.
I'm not
That's
saying
more
you
like
can't ever
you
do
can
it.
only control what you can control yourself. So it's
Right.
like it's like that personal responsibility thing.
Well, I see it as a spectrum again, where it's like the happiness spectrum. Like, okay, so it's like my happiness is 100% my responsibility, and then the other end of the spectrum is my happiness.
Well, wait.
is completely tied to my relationships.
You do that, we just agreed that life, the most fulfillment in life we get is serving others.
100%,
So now you're saying your happiness is only your responsibility.
100%,
So then is your responsibility to fulfill your life through serving others?
100%.
Okay.
But it needs to be rooted in the same thing, where it's like both people need to both be on that page.
Right.
I think that's the biggest problem, where it feels like.
Oh yeah, if that gets out of balance, you're screwed.
Because it's pretty obvious. You could probably go to most relationships and just be like, who asks who for the most things?
Right. But there's never
And there's
a time
almost always like,
when you ask for something, every time you ask for something, you're the person who needs it. There's never a time where we both are, I shouldn't say never. Most of the time, it goes back and forth the whole time.
so
Hey, I need this from you.
perhaps, yeah.
Hey, I need this.
Either way, you
I think-
can't be heavy on one side or the other. You can't have one person who's just all needy and
Well,
the other person who always
agree.
gives.
Sure. If
But I
you're
think-
both on the same
Yeah.
page,
Yeah.
how it happens might change. But that's just seasons of life.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think part of the challenge for me is like, because I'm so far on one extreme, if you're not on that extreme as well, it just isn't going to work. Because it's like, and for better or worse, I don't know how I landed here. It's like either it's just my thoughts and a culmination of like thoughts, upbringing, all this stuff. But it's like I am so hyper on this one side of like my happiness is only my responsibility, that once I get any semblance of a vibe where it's like I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Like it's hard to mesh.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I guess it would just be a decision of is pursuing happiness for yourself more significant than pursuing fulfillment for yourself? Because you could be fulfilled, you could pursue fulfillment and be unhappy while doing it, but ultimately it's the thing that
Sure.
brings you. So it's just a decision that
Yeah.
people have to make.
Yeah.
The life of fulfillment is not always the happiest while you're doing it.
Right. Well, so I agree. So are we on this planet to find fulfillment and purpose, or are we here just have an experience of being alive? Like it could,
I think both
who
of
knows?
those things happen.
Do we have
We're
enough
just-
life to live both? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, some people figure things out faster than others,
But
figure things out for themselves. I mean, that's, you know,
I would agree with that.
so anyway, I need to make, we went past half hour, but we're at 40, getting better at keeping my promises, even though I still broke it. Anyway,
It was good talks.
yeah, it was good talk. Good talk. Subscribe and like.
Deep wells.
Yeah. So,
Like and subscribe.
missed last week. Probably try to keep these to a half hour, ish, you know, like this going forward. So the other ones are kind of long. But yeah, so have a good day, everybody. We'll see you next time.